Welcome to Infidelity Truths. Before we dive into today's gripping story, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us create more thrilling stories just for you. Let's begin.
I've heard people say that pain comes in waves, but for me, it came in a single glance. It was supposed to be just a normal Tuesday. I had left work early, a surprise for her, really. We ain't been spending much time together, and I thought maybe this small gesture would mean something. As I turned the corner onto the main street, rain is starting to hit the pavement. I saw her. She was sitting outside that little cafe near the bookstore, our spot, the place where we used to split one muffin and pretend we were too full for anything else. But she wasn't alone. There was a man across from her, tall, clean-cut, casually laughing, and she was smiling. Not the polite, social kind of smile, the real kind, the kind I used to think was reserved for me. She tucked her hair behind her ear the exact way she did when she was nervous or shy or flattered. And in that moment, my heart sank so fast it felt like gravity had betrayed me. I couldn't breathe. I froze. I wanted to walk away. I wanted to storm in. I wanted to disappear. But I just stood there, soaked in rain and confusion, trying to understand how everything could shift in just a few seconds. Maybe I should have walked away. Maybe I should have spared myself what came next. But I didn't. I stood there like a fool, watching them try to read her face like a language I used to speak fluently, but now couldn't understand at all. Then, something strange happened. She looked up, right past the man, right at me. And for a moment, her smile faltered, like she'd been caught, or maybe like she'd been waiting. She excused herself from the table, grabbed her coat, and stepped out into the rain. She didn't run. She walked toward me slowly, step by step, her eyes never leaving mine. The city was loud, horns, thunder, people brushing past us with umbrellas. But when she stopped, just inches from me, it felt like the entire world muted. And then, in a voice barely louder than the rain, she whispered my name. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't an excuse. It was just my name. Like she was reminding me that I wasn't invisible. That despite everything, the man, the smile, the sinking feeling in my chest, she still saw me, still knew me. And that made it worse. Because part of me wanted to scream, to ask who he was, to ask if he made her laugh the way I used to ask if she smiled like that because she was happy or because she was trying to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. But I didn't ask. I just said, "Why?" And she looked at me, rain dripping from her lashes, and whispered, "It's not what you think." They always say that, don't they? But her voice wasn't defensive. It wasn't panicked. It was broken, like she was the one hurting. She motioned toward the alley between the buildings, away from the cafe, away from the crowd. We stepped out of view, just the two of us, surrounded by the dull echo of thunder. And that's when she told me. The man, her brother, half-brother technically from her dad's side, a part of her life I hadn't been around for. She had only just found out about him weeks ago and had been afraid to tell me. Afraid I'd think it was weird, afraid I'd ask questions she didn't have answers to yet. He had reached out after years of silence. They met in that cafe every Tuesday since. And she didn't tell me. Not because of guilt, but because she didn't want to open up something painful she hadn't processed herself. I didn't know what to feel. Relief? Anger? Confusion? She had smiled. That smile, that soft, real smile. And it wasn't for another man who loved her. And it wasn't for another man who loved her. It was for family, a connection she thought she'd never get. And I'd misread the whole thing. But it still hurt, because secrets, even innocent ones, leave bruises. And I wasn't sure if I should feel guilty for doubting her or she should feel guilty for letting me. We stood there in the alley, quiet, soaked, and tangled in a mess of truths neither of us had been prepared for. She wrapped her arms around herself, shivering, but not from the cold. It was that kind of tremble that comes when emotions are too big to hold in. "I didn't want you to think I was pulling away," she said, eyes low. "I just didn't know how to explain something I hadn't fully accepted myself." I looked at her, really looked at her, not through the lens of jealousy or suspicion, but through the eyes of someone trying to understand a person who suddenly felt like a stranger and home all at once. And I asked her, "Why didn't you trust me enough to tell me?" She sighed, leaning against a brick wall behind her. Her back slumped like she'd been carrying a weight for months. "Because I didn't trust myself," she said. "I didn't know how I felt meeting him. It brought up things I didn't know I still carried. Resentment, curiosity, loss. I thought if I told you, it would become real, and I wasn't ready." I hated how much that made sense, how human it was. But I also hated how easily love can be bruised, not always by betrayal, but by silence. She stepped forward close enough for me to hear her heartbeat between thunder cracks. "I didn't cheat on you," she whispered, "but I did shut you out. And for that, I'm sorry." Her voice broke on the word sorry, and something in me cracked too. Because I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. Just tired. Tired of guessing. Tired of holding questions in my chest like stones. Tired of love feeling like a puzzle with missing pieces. We walked to my car in silence. Not the heavy kind. Not the awkward kind. But the kind where both people are thinking the same thing and don't know how to say it out loud. I started the engine. She reached for the aux cord and played that song we both used to love, the one that sounded like both joy and heartbreak stitched together. We didn't speak until we got home. Inside, she dried her hair in the bathroom. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the picture on the nightstand, the one from our trip to the coast. She had her arms wrapped around my shoulders, laughing at something I don't even remember now. I wondered if we could ever get back there, if love, once bruised, could ever feel untouched again. When she came out, she didn't say anything. She just crawled into bed beside me and pulled the covers over both of us like she always did. Like nothing had changed. Like everything had changed. I turned to her and said, "I want no everything. No more locked doors in your head. If we're in this, I want all the way." She nodded, eyes glossy. "Okay." And then she started talking about her half-brother, about her father's betrayal, about how her mother never spoke of it, about the email that changed everything, about how she cried for 3 days before she replied, about the fear that meeting him would shatter whatever family she had built with me. And I just listened, not because I was trying to forgive her, but because I needed to understand her. That night, we didn't make love. We didn't cry. We didn't fall apart or fall back together. We just held each other, like we were two people who had found a crack in the floor and were trying not to fall through it. The days that followed weren't magical. They were real. Uncomfortable conversations, pauses, long stares across breakfast tables, moments where trust wobbled but didn't collapse. She introduced me to her brother eventually. And yeah, I felt weird, protective, guarded. But then I saw them together. The way she looked at him, like someone who finally found a missing part of her story. And I realized this wasn't a threat to us. It was healing for her. And if I loved her, really loved her, I had to make space for all parts of her, even the ones I hadn't met yet. Months passed. We started going to the cafe again together. This time, we reclaimed it. She smiled at me there, and this time I didn't misread it. It was for me, fully, unmistakably. One evening, a storm rolled in as we were leaving. She reached for my hand. The rain hit hard, the thunder loud before, and she leaned in close, lips to my ear, and whispered my name. Soft, certain, like a promise. And that's when I knew I hadn't lost her. We'd just been walking through a storm. And somehow, we made it to the other side.